Hey, what's happening? Episode 88. Check it. 1212. I am Shane.
And I'm Nico. I almost said I'm Shane too.
Yeah, I know, right?
Whoops.
And
Okay.
we're happy to have Brian Nichols of the Brian Nichols Show as our guest today. How
Hi.
you doing, man?
Doing good, guys. Good to talk to you. It's been a little bit. How you guys been?
Yeah, it's been
Pretty
good.
good. Yep. Just hanging in there in the, what is this, the fifth month of self-quarantine or whatever?
5th or 500th? I've lost count at this point.
That's what it seems like. It just seems like forever, It's crazy. So yeah, we're happy to have you on. Obviously I think the last time we kind of had this type of thing or whatever, we were on your show.
Mhm.
Yes.
So returning the favor, you are now
much
on our
obliged.
show.
Thank you.
All right. So I guess before we kind of get into your brain a little bit, I wanted to ask you about, because it's Sunday that we're recording this, and for a lot of people, maybe not for you. No, I'm sorry.
Just for me.
Yeah, I'm
Just
sorry.
not me,
You
sorry.
get
Just
out of
Nico.
here. Yeah, it's just
Okay, I'll leave.
the men are going to be talking here for a little bit. So the NFL has started. Obviously there was a game with the Chiefs and the Texans that just happened a couple days ago. But now the NFL, the week one is now real in full swing. I can't even talk. In full swing. All right. So just early predictions and, kind of the politics around the NFL and everything leading up to it, especially with the COVID thing that was going on. What are your thoughts on everything with the NFL?
Well, the NFL is walking a very fine line right now. Because I think by and large, the NFL is probably one of the more self-aware brands. Or at least I thought they were for a while. So the NFL kind of tiptoed around taking definitive stances on pretty much any sensitive issue in modern history. You really think about it, they really haven't really gone out and made it a position. Their players have, right? So we saw that really start in 2015, the hands up, don't shoot. But I think it was the St. Louis Rams at the time. They were very well noted for doing that. So, but other than that, though, Colin Kaepernick then obviously kind of took the main stage with his kneeling for the national anthem. But in terms of looking at the overall, the NFL this year, I think number one, the clientele doesn't want they don't want to be preached to anymore, for better or for worse, right? And we actually see this in the game that you referred to, the Chiefs and the Texans game. So you have the Chiefs and the Texans in a sign of solidarity, take a knee at the midfield, and the fans that were in the Chiefs stadium booed. And I think that speaks to kind of where the country is at this point. And I think you're going to find, and there's going to be a lot of folks, predominantly on the left, they're going to be really surprised at the election. I'm starting to believe more and more that Trump's going to get reelected. And it's nothing that he has done. It's kind of, and of all people, literally the best take I've seen was back from 2017. And what Ben Shapiro said was, all the left has to do is not be crazy. And what have they done? Yeah. They've just been crazy. And that's the thing, is it's not a matter of what Trump is doing, it's what the left is doing. And you see this in these predominantly left cities. You look no further than the likes of Seattle, Portland, and they're being taken over by not the Black Lives Matter activists that I think we would be on the same side as, but these really far left Marxist Antifa folks. And they're predominantly, entitled rich white kids who, they're just kind of bored, it seems. So going full circle to, the NFL, Shane, I think the NFL right now has kind of forgotten in 2020 who their market is, and they're going to start to see that. And we're actually seeing that firsthand. The opening night game, I think it was down 20% in ratings and in viewership. And that's a pretty big deal when you consider the NFL. It's probably the biggest sport in America, objectively speaking. The market share for the NFL is massive, and yet you see the numbers starting to drop. And I think it's because your average person that wants to watch football, that's exactly what they want to do. They want to watch football. So long story short, I think the NFL really needs to kind of consider, and I forget who I was just listening to, but this idea that the activist athlete is, the shut up and dribble. Like, that's not, I think, what a lot of people are saying. Like, there was a Charles Barkley on the cover of Sports Illustrated back in the 90s with chains on to symbolize, that he felt that he was not being, compensated properly, and he was still, a quote unquote slave to the system, being a player in the NBA. That's in the 90s, right? And there was, I'm sure there's fans that were saying, not to say that, but by and large, they still went to watch him play. They still went and supported the team. But at the same point in time, in the NFL in 2020, and you're seeing this across major sports, is that message has now started to seep into the actual content, right? So the best analogy I can say, like, imagine if you went to Walmart, right? And every time you went to Walmart, a cashier was going to preach to you about, the merits of the merits of third wave feminism, right? But like, you had to experience that every time you went to Walmart. That's kind of what your average fan, I think, is starting to feel when they turn on the football games, right? And I think the NFL's got to really take a really hard look at, is this from a business standpoint the right decision, number one, but also from a building bridges standpoint. I don't see this mindset of focusing only on negativity as a winning strategy. And this is one thing I've been talking about in my show, is selling positivity, selling a positive vision for the future. If you're constantly focusing on the negatives, which I think is important to address the negatives and to actually focus on the fact that those negatives exist, but to not offer a positive solution. This is where a lot of libertarians get in trouble, right? Is if you're a libertarian, we often are very easily able to identify the problems we see in life and in society, but we often get criticized because we don't offer real solutions, right? So in this case, I would say that it's on us to start to say, to the NFL, like, hey, we're not a fan of what you're doing in terms of, promoting X, but that doesn't mean necessarily that we're not fans of the overall message. It's just like, you don't want to have that in the marketplace, because it's going to lead to what we're seeing a lot, right? And I guess I'll kind of turn this question to you, because this is the inner host in me, but like, you see this, right, in brands, you see this in this like woke capitalism. And I actually just saw this study that was like, it actually ended up harming the people that it was supposed to be helping, because it created negative perceptions of the people that it was supposed to be promoting, because again, it creates this negative resentment in your average person. And I think, again, it goes to speaking to unintended consequences. And I would go back to when I had you guys in my show, obviously you guys being Asian Americans, like, do you guys at all experience that in your lives? Like, just like the like woke virtue signaling, almost like kind of going against your ability to like live your lives?
Yeah, the thing that I don't understand about the woke capitalism and like pushing the message on everybody is like, it just seems so overbearing, and like, you'd think that like the whole woke capitalism thing, it would be, because everyone says like, well, we should just let the free market decide on, like solutions and things like that. But then when they're pushing this kind of thing, it's kind of like, do they care about the people who are buying their product, or they care about like getting out some message that's, not going to look, I don't know, like it's not going to resonate the right way that they want it to. Do you know what I mean?
But who are they talking to? You know what I mean? Like, who are they talking to? And that's the thing, I think, like, the expression I've become more accustomed with is Twitter's not real life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another thing too about that this whole aspect of just woke capitalism or whatever, is that these corporations are trying to get behind all these, I don't know, protests and everything like that. But at the end of the day, those people that you're saying, yeah, we're for, such and such or whatever, and we also care about social justice and everything. It's like, well, these people that you're talking to, they hate you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you can put as much money as you want into, you can put billions of dollars into such and such organization, whatever. They're still gonna be like, yeah, well, corporations are evil.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and that's why I'm a big proponent of getting your opponents to like just define terms, explain goals, because if you can't agree on like what the definitions of terms actually mean, and like, then you're kind of talking past each other. But like, I also want to know, like, what's your goal, right? Because if we're going to have this constant game of back and forth where it's like, well, it's not enough. Well, I'm going to say, okay, you need to like give me the measurement, like what is going to be considered quote unquote enough, so we can like, rectify this terrible injustice from our past and move forward. And I haven't really heard that, because it seems like there are people, and I'm going to point to like the people like the Colin Kaepernicks who take advantage, the Jameel Hills, right, who take advantage of this woke capitalism, and then they end up making millions and millions of dollars against the very thing that they're speaking against. And the only way that they're going to keep making that money is if that problem, it continues to exist, right? I talked to Gary Collins. He's big into the health and wellness sector. And one of the things he talks about, why are there always sick people and things don't seem to get better? Because there's no market in healthy people. It's the same thing is true. There's no market in finding common ground and moving forward in things, right? So until I think the adults in the room are able to sit down and say like, how, like, let's work this out, or like, let's talk through this and figure out like what's the best next step as a society, that, or like, we're going to see things get worse. Like the temperatures are going to rise, because honestly, people, like, I don't think your average person is okay with anymore being told what to do from Washington, D.C. And I think you can say that from on the left. They don't want to be told what to do by Donald Trump. But on the right, your average person, like out in Wyoming, they don't want to be dictated to by Washington, D.C. Like, come on.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned Colin Kaepernick or whatever. It's like, did you see the thing where apparently he's going to be on, I think, the Madden game or whatever,
and his rating is 5 points higher than it was when he was last in the game 4 years ago?
Yeah, and it's just like, I mean, can you just be real? And I mean, if you're gonna put him in the game, that's fine or whatever, but don't give him some, like you're saying, 5 points higher than what he was on before. Maybe something realistic, like, I don't know, a 70 or something, because I don't know, maybe he has been practicing every single day of his life after the NFL, he came out, whatever, because apparently he's been blacklisted or something.
Right.
The whole story behind that. And I don't really want to get into the whole, Colin Kaepernick is a hero or he's not, or he's a film. I don't know, whatever. I mean, probably all that probably did start when he started kneeling or whatever. And like, and just in terms of the protesting in general, with kind of going back with the NFL and sports in general, it's that if the players, when the national anthem is happening and the players want to kneel, I'm totally fine with that. If they want to put their hand over the heart, great. They want to stand up, start crying, do whatever. You can kneel, put your fist up. I honestly really don't mind any of that. And I think even the Texans and Chiefs game, I think the Chiefs were out in the field, but the Texans stayed in their locker room.
Is that what it was?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
And if the team wants to do that, fine, because the NFL probably isn't going to say anything about that. I mean, they're probably, I think at the beginning they were saying, oh, you better stand for the flag. You better do that, because if not, you're going to get fined or whatever. And once you do all the protesting before the game, fine. But once the game is going on, then, because people can tune into that or they don't.
Yeah.
Because they're like, I don't want to see the national anthem. I don't want to see some person singing the national anthem or, oh, say, can you see, or whatever,
But what's funny is that it didn't used to be like that. Like the national anthem and like the rah rah America, like that wasn't part of the NFL until around 9/11. Like, and that really came with, I mean, if you really want to look at like the root of the problem, it came with in our more spending from the Fed that went towards the war, that went towards basically like propaganda. I mean, if we're gonna really talk about like why we have the national anthem, I'm not talking about the merits of anything, but like the reason that we do the pomp and circumstance and all these sporting events is because entirely we are trying to build up this nationalist sense of appeal. I mean, I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan, for better or for worse, right? And I have a vivid memory of back, it was in 2001, right after 9/11, number 31, Roy Williams, who was our starting safety at the time, and he was like an all-star, running onto the field with an American flag before the national anthem, and there was like an overhead flyover of the Jets and stuff, and it was just like, it was so cool, and like you got goosebumps because you're like, yeah, I'm an American and America's team, and like you get all like, you get into it, and I can see why it's so it's such a toxic feeling you get, because you can see why the idea of nationalism can expand beyond nationalism, right? And it kind of is a little scary, because I can see how people maybe in Nazi Germany in the 1930s, they didn't really think anything of it probably. Now, no, I'm not comparing America to the Nazis. I'm not doing that before I get taken out of context. But I think it's important for us to at least recognize, right, things. Because, I mean, the reality is those who don't learn from history are condemned to repeat it. Now, do I claim to be a historian? No, I'm more of a sales guy. That's kind of my shtick. That's my niche in this liberty world I found myself in. But at the same point in time, I am a big believer in history and learning from those who have learned from history. I had Lily Tang Williams on my show. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with her, but she grew up in Mao's China, right? And she talked about, from an education standpoint, how it was Mao's China to indoctrinate the children. So like every night you would go home and you'd write in your little book to Chairman Mao, what your parents did. If your parents were talking to anybody they shouldn't be talking to, and then you'd bring that to your teacher. And every day you do like a report basically on, your letters to Chairman Mao. And then the teacher was supposed to bring it to Chairman Mao. But what they'd actually do is they'd bring it to the government officials. And if your parents were on they were doing something nefarious in the eyes of the Chinese government, then they'd be taken away and likely killed. Right. So that was a complete indoctrination from, just an education standpoint. And you see how easy it can be to completely pervert a mindset. You look at North Korea and you have an entire population of people who I hope they don't think that the Kim family is royalty or, that they're, deities, but I'm sure that there are some people, because that's all they've known, that is their reality. That is their world. So I think then it goes to us. And then that's kind of what we do here is we just try to talk to more people. Right. And raise awareness and stuff like this. And I think it's also important on us to point out when the other side, I would say that goes back to the NFL, sometimes when their messaging and their approach to solving these issues actually are creating some more harm. We're seeing right now a massive turn in support for Black Lives Matter over the past couple of weeks. And I wouldn't be surprised, because the fact that a lot of it is associated to the riots and the looting. Mm-hmm. And that's not fair on the movement, I would say. But that's what happens when the association is created. So then you have organizations like the NFL who start to raise up more of that, and it creates more resentment, right? So and then it fosters that resentment. And again, your average person, they don't want to be preached to. They want to be maybe educated, right, and have those conversations. But when you're being preached to and you feel like you're being yelled at, like if you're being told that you're a bad person, like, how are you going to enter a conversation in good faith? Like that's I've never had a winning conversation, a winning sales call by starting out saying, you guys suck. Like, here's why you guys suck so bad. Like, that's not how that works. And they're going to hang up on you, and rightfully so. And then people in the liberty movement are surprised, or people in the, in name the movement are surprised when they start out that mentality or that mindset, and then they get turned off entirely. Right. So I don't know, that I think if we're looking at the NFL and then kind of how it all connects in the grand scheme of things, and this weird just kind of cultural move that we found ourselves in, which I do think is entirely right now based on the fact that your average person they have nothing to do. Like we're finally getting back. I mean, when did we last record? Back in the summertime, right? And we were still like in the heat of the lockdowns. Yeah. So like we're recording now in the fall, and like things are kind of getting back to normal in some respects. My gym just opened back up here in Jersey, so like that was exciting. But yeah, like other than that, like people are still kind of just numb, I think, and they're looking for an outlet. And I think you've seen a lot of people use the protests and the rioting as their outlet. And because really they're just looking for something to change, and that's what they're envisioning as that change, instead of looking at bettering themselves or trying to, better their health or their financial well-being, whatever it is, they're focusing on destructive means. And I empathize not with the person doing that, but I empathize with the person getting to the point that they're just looking for answers. Right. Yeah. That was a lot there. I guess I kind of went on a really scary just death spiral of sadness and depression, talking about where the country is. Man, I'm sorry about that. We'll have to bring it back up.
No, I was just going to make a joke and say that you said your gym opened back up in Jersey there or whatever. And I was thinking, man, as a Cowboys fan, that must be nice. Being in Jersey and probably surrounded by Giants and Jets and Patriots.
Oh no, you think no, dude? I'm down next to Philly. They hate me.
Okay,
yeah, don't worry.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a 49ers fan, and
okay, Cowboys territory.
Yeah, I know, right? But I don't really like project. I don't wear like Cowboys. I don't wear like Niners gear all the time and everything.
Right.
It's just something that
Yeah, you gotta be smart about it. Like, I mean, I'm a big guy. I could hold my own, but like I'm not gonna like go invite people to kick my ass because I'm wearing a Dallas Cowboys stuff. Like I'm just you gotta be smart about it.
especially with Eagles fans all over the place. Like I heard they can get pretty bad over there.
They can get aggressive. They can get very aggressive, to say the least.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You know what? I just thought of something though. With all the people moving to Dallas from California, maybe you'll have a market for like San Francisco.
Yeah,
here.
there you go.
Just keep your football team. Just have them change their politics though when they're moving with you.
Yeah, as long as they don't bring their politics here, we're good.
That's probably easier said than done, though. I'm sure.
What do you guys like? I'm curious. Where do you think that cognitive dissonance comes from? Like they can literally look at California and just see what all these. I almost said a dumpster fire, and I was like, just not a joke to be made at all right now.
Yeah.
But like literally, I mean, the policies in California have been dumpster fire policies for generations, and it's like, how can you say like, oh, I'm going to move from a state that is in complete just downward spiral because of bad policy, and then move to a state that has good economic standing, and I'm going to implement those exact same policies and then be confused when it starts to get bad. It's like, I don't understand how somebody doesn't see that.
I don't get it either because, I mean, as we speak, California is literally on fire.
Right.
And they're, I don't know, like there's a lot of problems that we could get into with California, but then like all these people end up moving to like, liberal areas in Texas or in Colorado. Well, Colorado's a socialist state anyway. But anyway, like they'll move to Dallas because it's blue, and then they'll move to Austin because it's blue, and then they'll try to say we need to turn Texas blue, and I don't get it. Like, so why? So we can become like California? Like,
I was just gonna mention when you're talking about like dumpster fire and just California, and the fires are happening there. Unfortunately, there's that famous video right now where Gavin Newsom is talking about how we're something like we're a progressive state and we're doing all this stuff, and it's like you're literally standing in smoke right now.
Yeah,
it's like, why did you do it there? Why can't you just do it in your office or something?
Exactly.
I don't know.
That one.
That projection is just that one was weird.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we've gotten to this point in the simulation where like the gaslighting is like all the way up. Like, I mean, there's that one Chiron on CNN, right, where the guy is standing in front of the fire, and he's like, a mostly peaceful protest did a few fires. It's like, my sir, turn behind you. Like, what are we doing?
I don't know. It's like, are you blind or something?
Yeah,
like just like 2 steps, just 1, 2. There you go. Like mostly, no.
Yeah, and you can actually hear gunshots in the background of that video if you listen. And I'm just like, are you like, we're supposed to believe you right now, even though like right behind you, there's like fights and stuff going on and a fire burning in a building.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And so actually this is a pretty good segue on, because you were talking about kind of a little bit before, we were talking about California and everything, about how BLM is being with the protests and rioting, looting, and all that. That message, that's a good message, but obviously with all the bad stuff that comes with it, everyone's just going to associate BLM with, well, you're just those that want to loot and destroy my business.
Yeah. Well, wait, just before you say that, also they don't have any set goals that are achievable. So I think that's why they keep getting associated with these things.
Well, yeah, that's true. And so the reason why I say that is because there's this really big, massive controversy that's going on right now. And there are people that are saying, well, and I really want to try and be as light as possible, but it might not be possible. But so there's this movie out and it's called Cuties, and everyone's all like, there's all these movie reviews saying, well, maybe if you just tried it, maybe maybe you'd like it. It's like, wait, what? So there are people, I'm not going to name names because whatever, but there are people who are saying, well, this is all the libertarians' fault. This is libertarianism. This is why this movie, libertarianism. So, okay, my first thought when I see this is, so now you're saying that libertarianism is all the power. Hollywood apparently is filled with libertarians. That's news to me. I didn't know that. I mean, I know
3 of them.
Movie. I know it's a French movie, but still, it's the movie community. Let's just say that.
Yep.
And then you're gonna basically say, okay, so now all libertarians like this kind of stuff. Oh, really? In my Twitter feed, maybe it's just the people I follow. I mean, I'm sure that has something to do with it, but I haven't seen maybe a couple. But for the most part, most of the libertarians have been like, no, they're going to go in the wood chipper. Like we're going to shoo them away. We're going to kill them if possible, whatever. So I get, maybe is that a gaslighting way of saying we love this kind of stuff? We're going to kill you.
Yeah, like I don't understand. So I know that you're referring to some of these voices, right? That they focus on libertine versus libertarianism. So right. Libertine is just do whatever because you can. That's not libertarianism. Libertarianism, to put it as Matt Kibbe so articulately framed it in his book, don't hurt people and don't take their stuff.
Yeah.
I think it is without question that anything that at all tacitly or full-throatedly endorses pedophilia is the definition of hurting a child. And that is entirely against the libertarian philosophy. To your point, Shane, the libertarian answer to pedophilia, like no, they would be looked at as the lowest of low in society. Anything you do to a child, I mean, pretty much is the worst thing you can do. And yes, they would be handled in that type of manner. And to associate libertarians with such a evil mentality it speaks more to the motives of the people that are making those arguments, right? And I say that because one of the things I've been focusing on in my show is only really engaging in folks in conversation with folks who are approaching conversations in good faith. Because if you're going to start out like in a conversation and you're already setting the framework for the conversation with either willfully incorrect framings or purposely trying to frame the conversation with manipulated data or framing, whatever it may be, I'm instantly questioning like, well, what's your goal here? Is your goal to actually have a conversation and find some common ground, or to actually like really dig into some issues? Or is your goal to try to make me look stupid for like a quick video that you can doctor and use? Or, is your conversation to leave just trying to feel right? Right. And if you're just trying to feel right, then I'm not going to have that kind of a conversation, because that's not a conversation worth having. So yeah, to cuties though. Yeah, no, I've heard this argument too, that, it speaks to, and I think the person who actually did the best, kind of synopsis of cuties was Ben Shapiro. And he basically said, like, listen, if you want to look at cuties as like what the message was, yes, the message of the movie was that of like getting sexualizing children out of the mainstream, which is fine. But in the process of doing so, you sexualize children. And like, there has to be kind of like this, like timeout, like acknowledging that that's probably not a good thing, right? Like they're kids. And I think until we acknowledge, like, there has to be kind of this line, right? It doesn't have to be a line from government. It can be us as a society saying like, no. This is too far. And we're seeing that. I mean, I think I saw the number was Netflix has lost $9 billion in market share over the past few days. That's showing that your average person is saying, nope, that's too much. And now that there's a lot of other competing services out there, I'm sorry, Netflix, I don't need you. Oh, and by the way, the only reason I would use you anyways is because I watch The Office. So guess what? I have all 9 seasons on DVD. R.I.P. Netflix. Like I think your average person, they're also kind of waking up to that too, which is encouraging, because that shows that the foundational principles that we speak about, in terms of the free market and such, that they're sound. Like. Mm-hmm. Monopolies only exist when they're offering their customers or their clients the service that they're looking for at the cost that is justified, right? Yeah. And if you're going to start to offer a service that is like highly questionable and morally questionable, then you're going to start to see your average consumer move their dollars. And that's a good thing. Like, the more competition in the marketplace, the better. That's why I would dare say, and that, you want to do a throwback. This is like, I think, 2 years ago, net neutrality. You want to go back there? If net neutrality had been, entirely reversed, I can almost guarantee that Netflix would have been insulated from any market forces because they would have had a much higher monopoly in the market. Because what net neutrality is going to do was going to be allowing the ability to basically have these buffet. Imagine the internet as like a buffet, right? So when you're utilizing the internet. There goes my mic. When you're utilizing internet services, it's like you're utilizing the bandwidth at the buffet, and companies would charge you based on how much you were utilizing. The idea of net neutrality is that you weren't going to charge the users who are using more data higher amounts based on their using more. So it'd be like going to a buffet. You're not allowed to charge the sumo wrestler more because he's going to eat more versus, the anorexic person. And like you weren't allowed to discriminate that price. So that's what the whole problem was with net neutrality, which would inevitably lead to a situation where you have these high bandwidth using companies like Netflix who would take advantage of the situations, would create then a situation where the other providers out there would be able to compete, maintain that traditional cost that otherwise would have been lowered in the market. And you would have had a situation where competitors, now obviously like Disney Plus and stuff, those would have existed, but the ease of entrance into the marketplace would have been a lot more difficult. So I'm not sure you would have seen as many competitors on the marketplace right now as you would have otherwise. So, again, going full circle, it also speaks to, a focus on government intervention. If government had intervened, I can almost guarantee that this whole cuties thing would have and could have been a lot worse because the market wouldn't have been able to react the way it would have wanted to. So, but it doesn't matter because we all died from net neutrality and such 3 years ago. So this isn't even happening. This is all a simulation, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, that explains 2020, right?
Please, yes. Explain 2020. We're going to all wake up. It's going to be over.
Yeah, and not only that, everyone will be tweeting one word and then a big space, another word. Because everybody was tweeting like that during that time.
Yeah, exactly correct. Yep. Can we always go back to St. Patrick's Day of March and just be fine again before COVID and stuff too?
Yeah, that would definitely be better than
I think that's the last checkpoint in the simulation before things got weird.
Yeah,
that's definitely for sure.
Last autosave.
But yeah, that's a good point that you're talking about. Just how, because I'm sure when Netflix is seeing their market share is going down and all the money they're losing, I don't know what they're thinking, but I would probably guess they're probably going to have some meeting and be like, oh, what happened here?
I hope so.
I would hope so.
We totally backfired on this. So they're probably thinking, oh, this is going to be, no one's going to know. We're just put this movie in there. Okay, great.
Well, the thing that's weird about it is the only people who seem to be defending it are some random journalists who were like, well, you have to watch it or something in order to understand it. So I'm just going to put it out there that I did watch it or kind of skimmed through it, and it is worse than the trailers. So just don't watch it. And we're also probably canceling Netflix because we don't really have a reason to keep it. So
yeah. Yeah, because we're starting to go through Star Trek: The Next Generation, and we're watching on Netflix. And then I was like, well, let's just check it out on Prime, and it's there.
On Amazon Prime.
I was like, holy, it's actually on Prime. Okay, now we can,
yeah, because that's the only reason why we're having it.
And then I also saw too that Cobra Kai is on Netflix, but you can just get YouTube Premium because there too. So there's that as well.
There are options.
Yeah, exactly. There are. Yeah, for sure.
The market is providing options.
Yeah.
The market finds a way.
Yeah.
So I guess kind of speaking about your show, whatever, because you were talking about having conversations with people that actually want to have a conversation and not just, kind of tying it with what we're just talking about, just people just going into bad faith being like, yeah, well, this group is that and that's it. I'm not going to have any. Okay, well, then what's the point of me talking to you then? If that's how you're And so kind of talk about, about your show and just how, the conversations that you've had and everything, and how the message should be spread better than how it has been spread.
Yeah, for sure. So my show, let's see, we're going on 3 years, which is hard to imagine. I am at 134 episodes, I think now. I was doing once a week. Now I'm actually, so I have a new producer behind the scenes, which means that I can actually start focusing more on the things that people want, which is content. And I can, kind of help doing some of the back end stuff, delegate that and relegate that to my awesome producer, Corey. So with that, we're kind of doing either 2 or 3 episodes per week, depending on, the number of guests I've had. And to speak to the guests, my running joke is that I want to have people on my show who are infinitely smarter than I am. Because at the end of the day, I don't know everything. And I think it'd be silly for anybody to ever kind of believe or position themselves as knowing everything. So with that, I have experts on my show from all walks of life: entrepreneurs, politicians, economists, successful business owners. You go through, and really the real point of my show is to ask questions, right? To figure out what it is that your average person needs to hear, and ask the questions that they're asking. They're asking in their head to these people, because I think at the end of the day, your average person feels embarrassed to ask questions because they feel like, oh, I'm stupid. So when I had these experts on my show, I'll put myself in a state of ignorance and be like, yo, listen, I don't know the answer to this question. I just had Mikkel Thorup on my show. He's an expat, and he really focuses on leaving America, being able to get a real, truly free lifestyle, offshore banking and stuff. And I was like, listen, I'm going to completely acknowledge this and admit, elephant in the room, I know nothing about this topic. Educate me, teach me as if I am an idiot, because I quite literally am. So in this case, that's one aspect of my show. But the other part that I've taken on as kind of my role, and I do so because I really haven't seen it being focused upon as it needs to be in the liberty movement, as one of sales, and selling liberty, and truly making liberty relate to your average person on a person-to-person basis, right? So with that being said, one of the things I've been focusing on is to have conversations on my show to really focus on where maybe either we have common disagreements or agreements, and then to work through those, and then to take those individual instances and teach my audience how to relate them to your average, be it Republican, Democrat, conservative, socialist, and to have those issues resonate with the average person, but to also show that we can't approach conversations that we know everything. We can't. We have to approach conversations the same way that I've really kind of had to approach my show, because at the end of the day, everything in life is sales. And either you're selling yourself, you're selling an idea, you're selling a product, a service, whatever it may be. And if we're selling liberty, right, and we're just preaching about the merits of Rothbard and Hayek and Mises, guess what? We're going to get glazed over eyeballs. It's not because the information isn't great. It's because they don't care. We're not talking to them where they're at. So the difference would be we need to start asking questions. And that requires us to do this thing that libertarians just don't seem to have the ability to do, and that's show some empathy. Because when we ask questions, right, it gives us a chance to learn where that person's at and to find where maybe we can find some common ground to then build a conversation upon. I'd never have had a conversation go too far when I've had somebody say that you're an idiot, or that you're wrong, or that you're a bad person. Like that, you're not going to have a conversation with somebody. But you're also not going to have a conversation with somebody when you come in guns a-blazing at level 1000 libertarian, and they're at level -5 because they maybe have never even heard the term libertarian, or if they did, they just thought of Gary Johnson sticking his tongue out on TV. And that's kind of the challenge that your average libertarian faces, is trying to get our message and our solutions to your average person, because your average person has really so personified this caricature that has been created, that is the libertarian. It's the naked guy running on stage. It's the Gary Johnson faking the heart attack, which was hilarious, by the way. But that is the mentality that your average person has when they look at a libertarian. It's on us to get past that and to start to break that characterization by asking questions to the people we're speaking to, and to relate our libertarian principles to the answers to their questions. So if I say, if I come in and say, hey, here's why property rights are so important, here's why non-aggression is so important, and that, we're not talking their language, it literally is like a language barrier. But if I say, hey, right now what's happening with all the rioting and looting, we believe that, Black Lives Matter, and we support criminal justice reform, but we also support the property rights of your average business owner. do you see the value in, supporting property rights or maintaining property rights? And if you can start to build some common ground there, or ask them, hey, have you experienced any of those problems in your community? And what do you think would be, the root to those problems? Start to get like what they think that the solutions are. Cause then you can kind of reverse engineer, go back to where they started out on this pathway of, maybe government being the answer to the problems. And you can see, if you can reverse engineer to the point that you get to like where that, moment they took the blue pill was, that you can almost like kind of figure out how to get them to take the red pill, right? Because you just got to get them back to that frame of mind. This is in sales what we call tracing the sales cycle. So you're going through the sales history. You'll ask somebody, hey, last time you did this decision, what was the process? Who was in these meetings? What were kind of some of the deciding factors for you? And the reason you're asking that is because 9 times out of 10, those are going to be the same deciding factors when they're looking at a new solution. So we have to do that when we're promoting liberty as the new solution. Problem is that we've just been promoting it as like engineers. So we'll give them a 30-page white paper and be like, read all this and you're going to learn all about why what we have to offer is the best. We're not talking to them as a person in terms of the value that's going to bring to them or bring to their community, bring to their families, bring to their livelihoods, their future. We have the responsibility to present it in a way that's easy to digest, but also that paints a vision for a better future. Because again, if we're selling negative, we're going to be losing.
Mm-hmm. I just kind of want to rewind a little bit and know your story of how you became a libertarian, or if you've always been a libertarian, raised libertarian, or do you have some sort of like moment when you kind of became a libertarian?
I do actually. Well, it was kind of like a morphing. So my family history, my family, Republican politics through and through. My dad, 15 years was a county legislator for my home district. And I got to meet some very noted people in American politics: Chuck Schumer, Hillary Clinton, Governor George Pataki, former Congressman, Secretary of the Army, John McHugh. And with that, I got to really experience how politics works. But it was through the lens of making the system keep working versus like the principles, right? So the first like principled moment I really remember was watching the 2008 debates with Ron Paul, being really the only voice of reason compared to the other, I forget how many candidates on stage, but most notably was Mr. America's mayor, Rudy Giuliani. This is 7 years after 9/11, right? And we're saying that 2 days here after the 19th anniversary of 9/11. And like Ron Paul was the only candidate on stage being like, hold up, maybe they attacked us because, we've been over there for couple decades, have bombed a couple of families into, the Stone Age. Maybe that's the reason that they aren't big fans of us. Maybe it has something to do with us, promising after they helped us get the Soviets out of there that we were going to help rebuild their schools. And then we didn't, and we pieced out. Maybe there's a little resentment from those mujahideen who became Al-Qaeda, maybe. So that was kind of my first, like, oh, he's saying something that's different and it makes sense. So I should have been like, time to like start digging more into who this guy was then, but I didn't. I kept going through Republican politics. I worked on congressional campaigns, assembly campaigns. I've done everything in campaign politics you can really pretty much think of. And then when it was 2012, I watched in Mitt Romney's, flaming defeat. I was like, what is happening? Why didn't people vote for the guy who's talking about economics in the right way, which wasn't the right way, but I thought it was the right way, because it was different from what Obama was preaching. And then I started to hear more people being like, oh, it's because, he wasn't good on the social stuff. And I was like, oh, that's weird. I thought he was like decent. He seemed like a nice guy at least. And he didn't seem like too threatening. So I was kind of like, well, maybe we need just to have like this like socially accepting party, right? And so in my mind, I made this like new age Republican. It was going to be like a fiscal conservative, socially accepting, kind of like that like shtick that Gary Johnson was promoting as a libertarian in 2016, right? That was how I wanted to approach it. And then also I heard Rand Paul, of all people, on the Senate floor doing a filibuster for bombing folks with drones who were American citizens. And I was like, wait a minute, Paul, I know that name. And then I put 2 and 2 together that he was the guy from 2008's son, but now he's in the Senate and he's talking about the same stuff that his dad was. And I was like, okay, so there's gotta be something these guys like talk about behind the scenes, that they both are on the same page with foreign policy. I should look more into them. And then I started the ever infamous YouTube rabbit hole. And I just autoplay feature was the worst thing ever, because I was going down every single Ron Paul video, every Rand Paul video. And I started to learn Milton Friedman, Rothbard, Hayek, Mises. I started, watching Tom Woods, Dave Smith, Austin Peterson, Jason Stapleton, We Are Libertarians, Lions of Liberty. And I just started to go down this libertarian rabbit hole. And I was like, oh my God, I get it now. Like, this is what I've been believing this whole time. I just didn't know there was a word for it, because my history, I'm from upstate New York. Like, I'm middle of nowhere. Like, you are either Republican, conservative, or Democrat, liberal. Like, and if you're a socialist, like, you have 4 heads. So you're not even up there. But like, that was my world. So when that's all your world is, you're kind of like isolated to what you're experiencing. So just being able to like get online and start to watch some of these different videos are really opened my eyes. So then I started to support Rand back in 2015 when he was running for president. I wanted him to be the face of the GOP. I was like, this is the way that the GOP can like bring in this liberty idea that I have stumbled upon, and make it like a national issue. And we can have like a real conversation about like government and stuff. And then he got his butt kicked, right, by Trump. So I was like, well, I don't want to support Trump. So I supported Austin Peterson. So I went ahead with Austin, and I not only supported Austin, but I ended up writing for his website, Libertarian Republic. So I started writing for Libertarian Republic, associate editor there. And after a little bit, I started doing a podcast, and it was focused on doing like a weekly review of the news. So with that, I ended up getting invited onto some other shows, namely being that of We Are Libertarians. And Chris Spangle at the big channel We Are Libertarians, he had me on for a couple of guest shows. And around the end of 2017, he was like, hey, the network is going to be taking a little bit of a change in direction. Would you be interested in hopping on the network to have your own show? And I was like, actually, that's something I've been kind of like wanting to do, is like use that medium to like, have my own show. So starting in January of 2018, the Brian Nichols show was born. So basically the show since then, like I said, 134 episodes in, and really my goal is to have, movers and shakers, both in the liberty movement, but also in their respective areas of, expertise, be it, in industry, be it in economics, science, healthcare, whatever it may be. And really just to talk about the issues that people are talking about, but also people care about, because at the end of the day, going back full circle, if we're not talking about the issues that people are genuinely concerned about or are asking about, then we're just white noise, which there's too much white noise. At this point, your average person has sensory overload. So I'm trying to have these interesting conversations. That's why I had you guys on, right? To talk about the culture, because I think that's kind of a nice niche that you guys have really, you started to navigate yourselves down. And I think you guys have great takes on the culture that are much needed. And that's why I wanted to make sure, I had you guys on, because it's not a message or a voice that's really talked about much on, the libertarian side of things. I think, you guys, you get a lot of crap on Twitter because you say, libertarians hate leaders, right? Like, it takes a leader to say something that's controversial or that's not a popular topic because it's the right thing to do. So I mean, you guys do that a lot, and that's why I love following you guys, number one. But number two, also just, I think if we can relate liberty in a fun way, that's the winning strategy. And that's what you guys have really taken on with your show, with your doing on Twitter and stuff. So I love being able to spread more voices, bring more people on, bring more voices to the liberty movement, and then also spread those voices far and wide, because at the end of the day, my voice might not resonate with a particular person, but yours will. And that's what we're doing here. Like, it's not about an ego thing. It's like, do we want to make America freer? Do we make the world freer? Like, isn't that what we're on board for? So yeah, it's the Brian Nichols Show. It can be found everywhere. Apple Podcasts, though, is the main place to find it. And you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and minds.com. It's at @bnicholsliberty. And my email is brian@briannicholsshow.com.
Yeah, and here's the website.
Ew.
It was funny because we were thinking about you plugged us. I was like, oh, it's a great time to go and show everything here. Here's the website. And it's funny because you're talking about the Pauls, and I was just like, oh, the Pauls strike again. They got another one.
They did. No, and you know what? That's the thing that drives me crazy is, like, I get the libertarian, like, it goes back to like with Cato and Rothbard, and there was this whole split there, and then like the Pauls history, and like there's this like split in the libertarian movement, and I'm just like, I don't care. anymore. Like, and honestly, neither should anybody else. Like, we can control, and this is one thing I lead a sales team. My day job, I'm a telecom sales director, right? I preach this to my sales team. Control what you can control. Can we control a feud that's happened in the past? Can we control things that the Pauls did or that the Libertarian Party did in the past? No, what we control is what we're focused on now and where we put our time and energy right now. So,
yeah, I mean, that would be great if they could just come together. But I mean, I guess some of those wounds they're just going to be there for who knows how long.
It's so sad. It honestly is.
Yeah. So now we're going to get into the part of the show that is always lighthearted sometimes, a lot of fun, but always weird.
Okay.
Weird news stories.
Yeah.
And so these were actually, because we did a poll over at our Patreon page to see, well, which weird news story should we talk with Brian? And there was a tie.
Uh-oh.
So we're going to try and go through these real quick.
Okay.
So if anything, we could just look at the headline. Okay, we're done with this. But I think the first one, we're really
this one kind of lines up with what we were talking about before. So
yeah,
with like elections and everything. So yeah.
So for this one, it is a transsexual Satanist anarchist is GOP nominee for Cheshire County Sheriff.
Yo, Mad Libs 2020 is wild.
Yeah, and this is in New Hampshire for those who don't know, and this is in the InsideSources.com. And I looked this up too just to see if this wasn't some bullshit story. It's true.
Yep.
So
wow.
It's pretty crazy. And apparently they're not getting a lot of support from the Republican Party.
Then how do they? I don't understand how they won. Like, how does this type of stuff happen?
Because so in certain, it's actually funny. My dad now is the elections commissioner in my home county. You see this a lot. There'll be like just sacrificial lamb seats. So basically it's like, that the candidate is never going to like your guy's never going to win. So like, you'll just like toss up a random person or you'll just not run anyone. So in this case, I'm assuming what probably happened is that's probably a super, super safe Democrat seat. No Republican challenger probably stood up because they were like, we're going to get our ass kicked anyways. Why put time, energy, and money towards a losing race? And then this wonderful Mad Libs 2020 candidate decided that they were going to take that void. And because I'm assuming in New Hampshire, the election law states that you don't necessarily have to have the blessing of the party as long as you file ballot access and you get your petition signed by enough of those voters that you're allowed to do it. So that's probably what they did. And you know what? It's funny, though. Like, that just speaks to why it's so important for your average person to stop being so apathetic. Like, get involved in politics. Otherwise, like, politics is going to get involved with you, like, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, and the funny part about it was this person is a self-proclaimed libertarian. And so they said that they're going to, like, go back to the article. I saw...
Go back to the article. This shit's wild. We got to make sure we get this verbatim.
They want to be known as a she-male. And they started as an offshoot of the Free State Project of Libertarians.
I was literally going to ask if they were a Free State Project. So actually, that was one of my sponsors in the show back when I first started, the Free State Project.
That's funny because then the Free State Project has since distanced themselves from them.
I wonder why.
So, yeah, I saw some people saying like, oh, the libertarians are at it again. They're trying to infiltrate the GOP. But it's like, come on, this is just
we sure are.
Local election.
Yeah. I mean,
meanwhile, you have Dan Crenshaw and his wonderful ragtag group of GOPers down in Texas trying to get the actual Libertarian Party off the ballot because they're afraid of the Libertarian Party candidates. And then over in Indiana, you have Libertarian Party candidate Rainwater, he's polling in, I think it was like a close third. He's got like 24%, and the highest vote earner was 30. Like,
that's crazy.
Let's focus on those folks, but no, we're going to focus on these folks. It's funny how like the media will pick and choose which stories they'll run stories about. They're like they're not going to raise attention to the guy who like might winning the governorship in Indiana, who's a libertarian. Like, that would terrify them because as soon as he got any notoriety, people would be like, oh, and like they'd be like, it's not a wasted vote. Hold up, like, and that's going to be the end of it right there when people start to realize that it's not a wasted vote anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm wearing this.
All right. So, okay, the last one, like I said, was a tie. So we'll go through this real quick, but it actually kind of speaks more to the culture
Okay.
thing that we're all talking about.
I don't know how you can take this seriously.
Well, that's true, but it is kind of funny.
You got to play the video.
Yeah, we'll play the video.
Okay.
It really hits home. Okay, so the headline, and this is in Insider.
Oh no.
And okay, yeah.
It wants us to turn off our ad blocker. Sorry, people. Just a moment.
Oh no, it doesn't want us to see it. But anyway, okay. Dr. Phil told his TikTok followers to stop calling him daddy because it's a little weird.
Ew.
So
that's gross.
Yeah, could you just imagine? Like, first of all, Dr. Phil, TikTok.
It's just so weird because I remember like coming home from school when I was like in middle school, and then that show would be on, so I'd sit there and eat a snack or something and watch that show. And now he's like on TikTok. I don't understand. Like,
I've never got the appeal of Dr. Phil.
It's more like like when you pass by a car crash but you can't look away. It's kind of like that.
Like right there, that whatever the. Look at him. Oh man,
Yeah. Okay, so we'll go ahead and play the video.
Hopefully it will play because this website's being a little slow, but.
You have to stop commenting daddy on all of my posts. I ain't your daddy. Hate to break it to you, but I ain't your daddy.
He kind of loves it.
I appreciate the support. It's a little weird, but I do appreciate the support.
He loves it. He's so full of it. Look at him. He's like, you gotta stop calling me daddy. It's kind of weird. He's so weird.
Yeah, and then like I don't know, like the only times I've heard of Dr. Phil in the last couple years is like something about him playing in a rock band or something. Remember that picture of him with a rock band? I don't know what's going on.
Oh, yeah, I think I know you're talking about. Yeah.
I remember the Cash Me Outside. How about that, girl?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Cash Me Outside. How about that?
That's like the last time I remember Dr. Phil being a person. Does that mean?
That's if it was a person after that. I don't know who you're talking about. Who is that?
Yeah. Dr. Pill? Dr. Ho?
I remember when he was in the opening of Scary Movie 4.
Yeah.
That was great.
What?
It's a movie thing. Yeah. Maybe we should watch it, but it's like it's so bad. It's not like, in my opinion, it's not so bad. It's hilarious. It's just
it's just
so a bad movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a bad movie. There was like 2 of the scary movies in a row. It was like I think it was 4 and 5 or 3 and 4. Which one were they? They were like bad and worse.
In my opinion, I would say 4 and 5. I think 3 had its moments.
Okay, that's probably 4 and 5 then. I remember I watched I remember this is when video stores were a thing, kids. And I remember I went to the video store and I grabbed like all the scary movies. It was like a Halloween thing, and I was like, we're gonna get through all these in a week. And then I got to 4 and 5, and I was like, these movies are terrible.
Yeah, they can definitely be a drag. That's for sure.
What, like scary? Well, they're called Scary Movie. It's just called Scary Movie.
Yeah, it's called Scary Movie, but it's like a spoof.
Oh.
They're basically
so like
spoofs.
this just in time for Halloween because it's
Right. Yeah.
Is it October yet? No, it's not.
Almost.
Almost. It feels like it should be because we've all been in lockdown for like 423 days.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it still feels like July 2019. I don't know. No.
What happened in July?
Yeah, I was gonna say what happened in July
I don't know.
2019.
I was trying to make a joke where it's like it's so crazy. I feel like it's from last year.
Because I legitimately I'll walk to my office and I didn't go back to my office until May, to grab some stuff, and it was still St. Patrick's Day on my calendar and stuff, and it was just I don't know. It's kind of like when you see the people go explore Chernobyl in time. I know that's a really, really gross analogy, but that's kind of what it feels like. You go back and everything is just completely on a standstill. It's I don't know. It was just very spooky. But yeah, it's kind of where my mind's at. It's still St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah. Well, so I always forget to do this, and I remembered it this time, and I swear I'm going to try and do this from here on out. Brian, can you give us some plugs?
Oh, yeah. So the Brian Nichols Show. Yeah, you can find the Brian Nichols Show anywhere you find your wonderful podcast, but specifically go to Apple Podcasts, give me a 5-star rating and review. That'd be really nice. But you can find the show, BrianNicholsShow.com. And as for me, you can find me on social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Minds.com at @BNicholsLiberty, or as it says right there below at @BNicholsLiberty. And if you want to get in touch with me, so right now we're growing the show like crazy. As I mentioned, my new producer and I, Corey, we've been working a lot behind the scenes, getting out more content, but also we're putting out more episodes. So right now we are not only growing and putting out more episodes, but also we're accepting sponsors. So I've already gotten a couple of great sponsors starting up here for the month of September. I'm actually getting some sponsors laid out for for October and for November. So if you're interested in doing a sponsorship or a partnership at the Brian Nichols Show, email me. It's brian@briannicholsshow.com. Shane, Nico, thank you guys. It was so much fun, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, it was great. All right, everyone. Thank you for watching, listening, and trying to stay sane.
What else is there?
I don't know.
Watching, listening, and I don't know.
Not booing. Thank you.
Yeah, there you go. All right, we'll see you in the next one.
All right, bye.